Så skal vi ikke bare byde velkommen til Claus Thylstrup.
Tusind tak. Back in 2015, I released this drum book called Creative Patterns, Development, Patterns and Fills. I lived in London at the time when I was writing the book, and I was very inspired by the amount of upcoming gospel chops drummers. but I was kind of looking for a way to incorporate their style into my style of playing. Just gonna move this. At the time, back in London, I had this favorite fill of mine, which many of you guys know. It's kind of is often referred to as the Motown fill, or like a 6-stroke roll, basically. So it goes like this. So basically a 6-stroke roll phrased as triplets. And at the time, I've been using that fill for years and years. But I thought, is there any way that I can take that fill and kind of develop it into like a gospel chop fill? So I analyzed a lot of gospel chops videos, and one of the first things I noticed was the amount of kick drums in fills, and especially in linear fills. Many of the like traditional gospel chops drummers had a way of incorporating kick drums and hi-hats into like a linear way of thinking about fills. So I started experimenting a bit with that fill, and I started switching some of the strokes with kick drums. And I ended up with a pattern that goes like this. Goes right, left, right, left, right, left, left, kick. So it's still 6 notes. Right, left, left, kick. If we play that as 6 tuplets, 4 times around, it's going to take the space of 1 bar. So. And I started to orchestrate that around the kit, incorporating the toms and I thought that was quite cool. But then I tried it with a band, and all drummers know when you get that look from the singer and the bassist, they turn around and they do like this. And you know you're about 2 seconds from being fired. So I thought, it's not going to work, really. So I had to do something. So I took the kick drum and put it at the very beginning of the bar. So it went from to the other way around. So it's kick, right, left, left. If we play that as 6 tuplets, that will mean that the kick drum is now on the quarter beats. Like this. And that turned out to be quite useful. In like a pop rock setting, if you have like a funky disco kind of beats. Also, like in a traditional disco. So by playing it that way, I was able to maintain the foundation of the groove, basically, which means that I can now I can actually get away without being fired and still play that pattern, which is quite useful if you still want to be in the band. as many drummers know, there are certain tempos in certain songs where it just doesn't fit to play triplets or sextuplets. It can be like because of the tempo or like because of a certain riff or a bass line. So within my book, here it is, advertising. Yeah, come and buy it. I've developed a tool called the step-by-step process, which is basically a tool for developing and redeveloping, further developing your fills and then all the fills and patterns that you already know. So one of the steps is to change the subdivision. So in this case, it's 6 tuplets. So 1 through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? But what if we took that and played it as 30-second notes? So now we have 30-second notes instead of 24 notes. But that doesn't add up. So if you play the pattern 5 times, we end up with 2 strokes, which we can add as right-left. So it's going to sound like this. If the tempo is round here, it's going to sound 1, 2, 3, 4. And we can start to orchestrate that around the kit, put it in a 16th note groove. And there, it's a whole new fill. Still same sticking, same basic pattern, but a totally different sound. And once I had that locked in, I started to incorporate the hi-hat and added some extra kicks. So instead of what I just played, I added a kick on the second right hand. I know this is a bit geeky and nerdy, but I mean, this got to be the place, right, to do that kind of stuff. So it's going to sound like this. It's still right, left, left. And I can start to put that on the crash, right, open hi-hat maybe. And again, sounds like a totally different fill than what we had at the very start, which was originally the Motown fill. All of the fills are of course valid, and I still use the Motown fill pretty much at every gig I've ever played, I think. But having that option to play this instead, or maybe just for like half a bar, gives me quite a lot of options with regarding to phrasing. When I was like thinking about what to do at this clinic, the first thing that came to my mind actually was a question. I heard another drummer ask a bunch of drummers once, quite a few years ago. So I thought that I was gonna do the same. So you have to talk now. What is the first thing you hear when you enter a room and there's a drummer playing? What's the first thing you notice or you hear? Anyone? We're all drummers, come on. It can't be that hard. He's voicing, yeah, it could be. Any more? Yeah, om det svinger. If it grooves. I raised my hand and I answered wrong as well. But he said, the very first thing you hear is the sound. It's not whether it's grooving or whether it's funky, what genre, it doesn't matter. It's the sound. The sound of the drums and the sound of the drummer's way of playing. So it's not as much as, of course it matters if it's grooving or not. But I just think that it's a bit overlooked. We have to be very specific about that. Our sound is the very first thing anyone hear when we play the drums. If I did like this, if you heard me play for like 5 seconds, and I did the very first thing you would notice is the snare drum is very loud. So we have to be very careful about the internal dynamics. Something that I wasn't particularly careful about when I started out playing drums. I would hit the snare drum very hard. But I kind of found out that that is also kind of what makes separates pro-level drummers from young drummers. The way that you'll kind of like have your internal dynamics locked in. So be sure that the snare drum, and kick drum is locked in with the hi-hat, and it sounds good. So the kick drum is not too loud, and the snare isn't too loud either. So that's, and it kind of made sense when I heard it that that's actually the very first thing you hear. And if your ears pick that up and they think, hey, sounds amazing, you're already like on the correct road. Yep. We got 2 minutes left. Any questions or comments? Yeah.
I think that's super interesting. And how would you advise a beginner to get started with this internal dynamic? If you don't know anything about it, what to do?
Listening. Listen to a lot of records. Let's go to concerts. Listen to other drummers play. Listen to records, your favorite drummers. Try to do some active listening. Listen to the music and actually pay attention. You have to learn to pick out the drums when you listen to a recording. So practice that. Listen to other drummers that you like. Try to pick out how is his or hers internal dynamics. How does it sound? And when you play, sit down and play. Make sure that you have a certain amount of focus on that, so you don't hit the snare extremely loud and the kick drum like this. So yeah, your ears is the best tool. Like practice listening, active listening, to actually pay attention to what's going on. Does that make sense? Cool. Let's play a little. 2 minutes. Thank you very much. Tak.